Yeah, so Michael, let me focus on the rankings. I hope to talk about this, by the way, in the future. But chapter 6 of my forthcoming book, which comes out in the fall, called Dream School, here's the subtitle of it: How the Information Marketplace Fed Our Obsession with Admissions. Fascinating chapter that I actually didn't even think I would include in the original book proposal, because what I found is that student behavior did change over the decades, right? As consumers got fed more and more data and information, they started to change some of their behavior. But what we ended up doing is just building kind of what Nassim Taleb calls kind of a haystack of data. And as it got better, as it got bigger, as that haystack got bigger, the needle we all are looking for just gets buried deeper inside. And, as Taleb wrote, and I quote in the book, we're more fooled by noise than ever. The rise of big data, as he said, has brought cherry picking to an industrial level. We all cherry pick. And that's what I hear here, right? A little bit. Will the funders, will states, will the NIH, will students, will boards just kind of cherry pick what suits them, kind of coming out of these changes to the Carnegie classification? Because that's what ends up happening in higher education overall, whether it's data around student outcomes, graduation rates. We all kind of pick what suits us.
Yeah, it's a good question, Jeff. And I guess it goes back to what you've said a few times now, which is we're going to have to wait a few years, see where the money actually, money flows actually change. Do more states start pegging, say, funding to outcomes based on this data? We know other states have followed Tennessee's lead, and states like Texas have increasingly moved to actually look at earnings, not just graduation rates and things of that nature. Will this provide sort of a more gold standard source of information for that? What will be the downstream impact? What will be the unintended consequences? One thought I will leave you with on this, I know from some folks connected to this effort that one of the things that they want to do is be much more agile in updating these based on the unintended consequences that they see. They don't want to be sort of like we put it out there and we leave that basic framework in place for another, my math's going to be shoddy, 50 plus years, right? And then we come back to it later and say, oh, gee, now we should rethink about this. We didn't realize. They want to be a little bit more dynamic with the sector. I suppose that also will have its perils because, as you point out, some of these things we won't really understand for 5-10 years. And frankly, with all the uncertainty at the federal level right now, who knows where the data is going to come from?
Yeah, I think that's a big question, speaking of the data. And I do like the fact that, again, this is a beginning point. I think it's a very good beginning point. And let's see how institutions react. Let's see how the funders react. So thanks so much to Mushtaq for talking us all through this. I know that sometimes this gets in the weeds of how colleges and universities operate, but kind of an important weed to kind of to pull at here. Incredibly important around the future as we think about the future of higher education. Really going to be curious to see how this impacts actual actions on the ground. So let us know what you're hearing and seeing on this front, and we'll do the same